Europe's leading multinational human rights body turns on its chief, angrily declaring no confidence in him over a trip to Syria and meeting Bashar Assad.
Macron is a pyromaniac who wants to pass for a firefighter.
I am the one who has to create unity today against Madame Le Pen.
Tension rises ahead of the French election runoff, with Eurosceptic Marine Le Pen and centrist Emmanuel Macron trading insults. And as Wikipedia's co-founder announces plans to battle fake news online, we look at who's behind existing initiatives that claim to defend the truth. Hello to you wherever you're watching. This is RT International. It's now 5 p.m. Friday afternoon here in the Russian capital. My name's Colin Bray. Thanks for choosing us for your world news this hour. First for you, Europe's top human rights body is in deadlock right now. The Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, which is made up of dozens of nations, has declared no confidence in its president over his visit to Syria last month. Here's our Europe correspondent, Peter Oliver.
Well, what we know is that the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe are less than happy with their current president, Pedro Agraman. They've declared no confidence in the 65-year-old Spanish senator who's been the head of that body. They put this down to a trip that he made to Syria, in which he sat down with President Bashar al-Assad. Now, that resulted in him receiving an absolute, well, savaging by his peers in the Assembly. We can listen to what they had to say.
There should be a wise and politically correct way out, and that is to step down, Mr. President.
I ask you to resignate. I'm sure you cannot anymore lead our assembly, because you cast a shadow, not only on you personally, but on all our parliamentary assembly, on all the Council of Europe. And if you're a real caballero, you should resign now.
Well, PACE is currently holding a special meeting specifically to discuss the future of Mr. Agraman. One key factor missing from that meeting, though, is Pedro Agraman himself. He hasn't turned up. He hasn't signed the letter of resignation that's been offered for him to sign, and he's nowhere to be seen at the moment. What we have heard from him, though, is him being contrite about the visit he made to Syria.
This visit was a mistake. I realised this after having seen the consequences, and in that connection, I apologise. Since the beginning of my mandate, I have made more than 50 official visits, and no questions were raised about those.
But as for what happens next, well, that's anybody's guess at the moment. The one crucial factor missing, of course, from this special meeting that was called is Mr. Agraman himself. The meeting was called to discuss him. We'd imagine that somewhere in the building in Strasbourg there are meetings going on between Mr. Agraman and his staff where they're trying to work out the best possible way that he can come out and say, yes, I'm going to resign, I'm going to step down. As it stands at the moment, it seems incredibly unlikely that come Monday morning, Pedro Agraman will still be the president of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe.
I got reaction earlier from Middle East expert Abdel Barry Atwan. He believes that such moves prevent a political solution to the Syrian conflict.
You know, everybody is entitled to go to Damascus and meet the people there to find out about what is happening. We need this kind of contact, and I believe it does help to find a solution to the Syrian problem, especially when we are witnessing talks in Geneva and also in Kazakhstan in order to find a political solution to the question of Syria. And there is a legal and legitimate Syrian official delegation participating in these kind of talks. So why this man is not allowed to go there, why he cannot express his view, why he is not free to try to find a solution for the war in Syria, I am really puzzled and surprised.
French presidential candidates Emmanuel Macron and Marine Le Pen have again traded insults ahead of their election runoff next month.
Macron is a pyromaniac who wants to pass for a firefighter. They are the oligarchs who have brought us to where we are now. They are the oligarchs who long ago chose their campaign. the one of the banker Macron, and who would like to impose for 5 more years their people and their policies.
I am the one who has to create unity today within a fractured France, against Madame Le Pen, the face of the National Front, a party we've known for decades. I unfortunately grew up in a French political landscape blighted by this party. It is a party of hate, of exclusion, and of a shrunken France.
Meanwhile, an angry supporter of the defeated Republican candidate, François Fillon, has been left frustrated by his decision to support Emmanuel Macron in the runoff. An open letter has been published in a newspaper in France accusing him of betrayal, as the programme of his rival is, quote, a political and economic disaster for France. And that message got a mixed reaction from readers. Here's why. Because before the first round of the election, François Fillon was very critical of Mr. Macron. He said that the centrist candidate pretends to be a dissident while hanging on to the ancient regime. But it took just hours after the first round for Fillon to change his mind.
Je voterai donc en faveur d'Emmanuel Macron.
I think it's true that many of the Fillon voters are very confused and abandoned, and I think many of them will either abstain or vote for Le Pen. I know from people who support Fillon that there are lots of exchange of mails and Twitters and so on, hesitating about what to do. So he's not going to be followed in supporting Macron by all his electors, that's certain. Fillon was a defeated man, you see. When he was chosen to be the representative of the Republican in the primaries, his election was a shoo-in. His party was popular, the socialists were unpopular. How could he possibly lose? And then came the affairs, and his wife was dragged in, etc. And I think it probably took a toll on his psychology. He wasn't strong enough to put up with all that.
In another development, RT will apparently not be given access to Emmanuel Macron, according to a spokesperson for the presidential candidate. The supposed reason is that this channel, as well as the Sputnik news agency, are considered to be state-sponsored propaganda. Charlotte Dubensky reports from Paris.
Well, that report came from the Reuters news agency, in which they've quoted a spokesperson of Emmanuel Macron as describing Russian media as being systematically desiring to spread fake news and fake information, and describing RT France and the Sputnik news agency as being propaganda, despite not giving any concrete evidence to support those claims. Now, just a few days ago, RT's crew tried to get into Macron HQ after the first round of presidential voting, and they were denied. This is what happened.
Une chaîne qui s'appelle RT, c'est une chaîne internationale, c'est Russia Today.
Jusque-là, on peut pas vous faire rentrer.
After that happened, RT has tried to contact Emmanuel Macron's press team via email and via messages on phones. So far, we've received no response. As such, an RT team then tried to request in person from a spokesperson information as to whether RT would be accredited to events in future. Again, there was no response.
Will you finally accept the accreditation request by RT? You're against the liberty of the press?
I'm working here and I have things to do.
RT remains waiting for a response from the En Marche team as to whether the channel will be allowed to attend rallies in future or have access to the candidate Emmanuel Macron. But we have heard from the Russian Foreign Ministry, who've described this as being a deliberate and outright attempt at discrimination.
Meanwhile, 30 French media outlets have signed a petition against the National Front Party, hand-picking the journalists authorised to cover Le Pen's campaign trail. Major newspapers like Le Monde and Le Figaro have put their names behind the campaign. A statement accompanying the petition outlines fierce objection to the move. Signatories say it obstructs their ability to properly inform the public.